Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, we are going to be talking all about the Zodiac Loose Pigment from ColourPop and KathleenLights. They are back again with another collab, and honestly, I'm not complaining here. I love everything she does with ColourPop. I feel like she just makes the most beautiful collections, and a lot of her collabs with ColourPop are some of like my must-have products from ColourPop. So she just does it well with ColourPop, and I can see why she is going back to ColourPop and collabing with them over and over again, because they just make really bomb-ass products when they do. So I ain't complaining, I'm here to support. But today's video is going to be a super long one. I have so much things to cover with you guys. Like, I'm constantly looking at my notes because I don't want to miss anything. There's just a lot to cover in today's video. Because it's loose pigments, there are different ways you can use it, and I want to show you those different ways how you can use them and make the most out of your money, because I do feel like pigments are not like an everyday thing, you know. It's not like a must-have in your makeup routine. So yeah, we have a lot to cover, and I also have 3 looks as always to show you guys, and I just want to talk about my thoughts and feelings. So I'm just gonna zip my mouth and we're just gonna go ahead and get started. So these are the Zodiac Loose Pigments. If you do want to get them in singles, you definitely can. They are $6 US each, but if you do want to get it in this little kit, I think it's like the PR kit, it is $70 US. You do get like a little Zodiac pamphlet in here as well, which is pretty cute. Also, the Zodiac pigments are completely different from the Superstar pigments that they launched around this time last year. I feel a different formula, and they are also in different packaging. I think these will just be called loose pigments now. I don't think it's called anything else. I don't know if they're gonna discontinue the Superstar loose pigments or if they already have. I'm not too sure, but this is what it used to look like. It was in like the Super Shock packaging, but you couldn't see what's inside, and that was a big con with this because you can't even tell what's inside. You don't even know what shade it is. You have to open it to see what you're playing with. I did a review on these and I haven't touched them since I've done my review, so if that tells you anything, then you know. But anyway, these are a brand new formula. I thought I would just mention it. But before we get into my review about the pigments, I just want to explain different ways that you can use these pigments and how you can get your use out of them, because I really do feel like pigments aren't like an everyday makeup necessity. So I want to show you different ways that you can use these colors. And you know, there's like a lot of gimmicky makeup items and fashion items and just gimmicky things in general these days, and it's just not realistic in the way that you would use them. Like, you would see those like DIY on clothing, and like you can make a wrap dress with this and this, but in reality you're probably not even going to end up wearing it. But the different uses for these pigments, they're realistic. Like, you probably will use it in these ways. I know I will. So it's realistic, and I think that's a great thing, and I thought I would mention that. So the first way you can use the loose pigments is what it's pretty much intended for, which is eyeshadow. You can use it as a wet pigment or a dry pigment, and I feel like with that it's already 2 different things, because when you use it dry and when you use it wet, it's completely different. You get like a whole different effect. So when you use it dry, I feel like it's more like loose glitter. It's not as metallic, but when you use it wet, it's definitely more metallic, more high shine. You can use it dry first and then use it wet on top, and it just gives you the most beautiful look. I do show you that in one of the demos, so keep watching. Even just using it in eyeshadow, it's already like a 2-in-1 in that aspect. And then the second way that you could use these loose pigments, or any loose pigments in general, is use it as a loose highlighter or as a highlight topper. So for my skin tone, I personally feel like out of all these shades, there wasn't a shade where I could use it as a highlighter. I'm a light to medium skin tone. I'm not too fair, I'm not too tanned or really deep at all. I'm just like floating in the middle somewhere. But if you're lighter than me, I think you could use the Maiden as an highlight topper or even as an highlighter. And if you're darker than me, even something like the Twins or the Lion, or this one, what is it called? The Goat. My book just fell, okay. Use one of these as highlighters or like a body highlight even, but just for me, nothing in here was suited for me, so I can't show you that. But the third way you could use these loose pigments is as a gloss. You can mix it into a gloss. So what I did, I used the Kumquat gloss. I don't know if I'm saying that right. It's from Bretman's collection. It's the only like clear gloss that I had, and even though it has like a blue tint to it, when you apply it to your lips, it is a clear gloss technically. But ColourPop did release like the So Juicy gloss, and there is a completely clear gloss, so you can use that if you wanted to. But I pretty much just mixed in the Lion into it, and I pretty much made it into like a clear gold gloss. On camera it was really hard to really pick up the glitters, but in person you definitely can see it. And honestly, you can use any of the pigments. You can use the blue one if you want like a blue gloss, green pigment to make a green gloss. It's all up to you and in your control. The more glitters you use, the more you will see the color. The less you use, the more you'll see the clear gloss. So it's really controllable as well, and when you put it on, you do not feel the pigment at all. It's very, very fine. There are some glosses in the market where you apply it and you can feel the glitters on your lips. To me, that's not really a bad thing, but maybe to someone that's watching, it could be a bad thing. But when you mix it in with glosses, you do not feel it at all. It just feels like a gloss. Like the pigments and glitters in here are super, super fine. And then the fourth way you could use it is just mix the pigments together and create more colors. Kathleen actually did a video where she mixed all the pigments together and it created like a really dark, almost blackish gray. I can't remember, it was a while ago. But yeah, you can mix all of them together. You can mix a couple. What I did is that I got the ones that I didn't end up using in my 3 looks so I could show you what they would look like. So in the end, in this video, I did end up using all the pigments, but pretty much what I did for the 3 pigments that I didn't end up using, I just took the Maiden, which is the white, and I mixed it in with those pigments, and it kind of just creates a lighter version of that color. The more white that you use and the less color that you use, obviously it's gonna depend on that. You can mix it around. It's very, very easy to mix as well. All you need is like a spatula and just like a plate and just mix it, and bada bing, bada boom. You can make any color that you want. Even if you buy this kit, you're not limited to it. You can create more shades and more colors with it, so I think that's another great thing with it. The 5th way you could use it is on your nails, and that's what I exactly did. So I want to show you like my process to getting it to how I like it. First got the pigments, I took the Ram and I used it on my nails, and I used a brush. I don't know why I wanted to use a brush, but I did. I think it's because when I go to the nail salon, it's not like I go to the nail salon anymore, but when I used to go to the nail salon, I would see they use a brush to do the acrylic, and I'm like, you know, a brush seems pretty good, you know, you're not getting your hands messy. But when I used the brush on my nails, I feel like it was very, very choppy, and there was a lot of texture with the pigment. It wasn't very smooth. So pretty much what I did, I just put a clear nail polish on first, and then I'll get the brush and the pigment and tap it on to my nails, and it wasn't smooth at all. Do not do that. Save your time because I did it for you. The following week, I took the scales, and it's what I'm wearing now. My nails are still from last week and it's a little bit chipped, so I don't want to show you too close up, but I'll show you like when I first did it. I saw Kathleen do it in her video. I'm like, duh, that's how you're supposed to do it. You don't have to use a clear nail polish. You can use like a pigmented nail polish. I pretty much took Aquarius from her nail polish line, which is sadly shutting down, but I took Aquarius from KL Polish. I used that as my base, and then I took the scale on my ring finger and I just tapped it on with my finger directly on to my nail. You just top it off with a clear nail polish and it works perfectly fine. I think it looks so beautiful. It's so smooth. There's no texture. It literally looks like a metallic nail polish, which is amazing. So if you do it that way with your finger, you can get it right. But when you are using it on your nails, you're gonna use up a lot more pigment than you would when you do your eyeshadow, for example, because you're like constantly taking it out. I've had my nail polish on for about 8 days now, and you can see it's pretty much on. There's like a little bit of chipping here. If my camera wants to focus on my nails, please. There's just a little bit of chipping here, a little bit of chipping here, but I mean, for 8 days, I think that's pretty good. When I did it with the brush, it did not last long. It started crumbling off, and you can literally just peel the whole thing off and it just comes off. And I'm just happy now that I have all these colors that I can work into my nails. And the last way that you can use these glitters is to use it on your body. I think a lot of like the funner colors, like the crab, water barrier, if you're going to like a music festival, you can dust this all over your body and that will look pretty cool. You could just like spritz like some Fix Plus, or not Fix Plus because that's MAC and that tests on animals. So you could spritz any setting spray, Urban Decay, Scandinavia, whatever you want to use. You can spray on your skin first and then apply it on, so that way it can actually stick onto your skin. But just like the funner colors, you can use it for like festivals. If you just want like a glow, again, if you're a bit darker than me, I think the lion would look really cool. I guess that's another way you could use it. I think for the shades in here, this one is the least realistic one, but in general, that's a way you could use those pigments. So those were all the ways that I feel like you could use the loose pigments, and that's also what Kathleen said in her video as well. I just kind of put them to the test. So now we can talk about my thoughts on the new pigments. So obviously what I've just been talking about for the last 10 minutes, these loose pigments, you can use them for so many different reasons, and I love that. I think that makes it so much more worth it, and when it's like $6, it blows my mind. You know, MAC pigments, the little tiny pots, like it looks exactly like this, the packaging. I don't even know how much, but it's definitely not $6 US, okay? It's much more expensive, and when you just get all of these beautiful shades, I think it's so much more worth it. And the way you can use them, it's just realistic ways to use them. Like, I know I'm gonna use it in a gloss, I know I can mix it, it's just practical. Also, the shade selection, when I was trying to find like my comparisons and dupe for you guys, which we will get onto a little bit later, I felt like I couldn't find a proper dupe. And when I was swatching these, I was like, oh, this looks like this shade from this palette. And then when I went to go ahead and film my dupe section and try to like dupe them, they were completely different. So in my mind, I thought they were the same, but when I actually went to go ahead and swatch them side by side, undertone, everything is like completely different. Just unique shades and beautiful shades, and I just love the colors. I just love how there's colors in here, and there's also like neutrals in here as well. Formula is also great. It's like I said before, the glitters are super fine. The pigments are like teeny tiny baby size. Like, they're so smooth. They work like an eyeshadow, but they have the reflex of a glitter. Like, that's the best way to describe it, honestly. It's just so beautiful on the eyes. I love how it looks, catches the light so beautifully. And sometimes with pigments or glitters on my eyes, sometimes I can get a bit sensitive when I apply them directly onto my eyes. It can kind of burn for a little bit, and then it's okay afterwards. But with these, I have no issue with sensitivity at all. So if you're worried about your sensitive eyes and like, is this gonna work out on you? For me personally, I didn't have an issue with that. So I thought I would just mention that. I don't think a lot of people would mention it. So with that being said, all of these pigments are super fine. There's no clumpiness. You don't feel it. It just feels like an eyeshadow, and it works beautifully. Final point that I want to make, if you do have the Dream Street or Zodiac palettes, these pigments will go super nicely with those. I feel like it complements them so beautifully. I only use the Dream Street and Zodiac palettes for my 3 looks because, you know, it's Kathleen's collabs. She did create the Zodiac palette, and obviously this is like the Zodiac loose pigments, and she did create the Zodiac palette to go with the Dream Street palette. So obviously everything here is kind of like meant to work together, and I truly feel like it does. I didn't feel like, oh, I need to go into a different palette and get this shade. I just found everything in these 2 palettes to create the looks that I did, and I just had a lot of fun doing it. If you have all of Kathleen's products, they will work great together. So all in all, if you can't tell already, I just highly recommend these loose pigments. I think they work so great. $6, that's about like $10 in New Zealand, which is still so amazing. A MAC pigment in New Zealand is probably maybe $30, so it's like 3 times the price. You are getting a beautiful formula, beautiful shades, you're supporting a great content creator. It's just great, okay? What else can I say? I feel like you guys get my gist. It's hard for me to choose a favorite. All of them are so special in their own way, and they bring a different element to this collection. So I personally can't choose a favorite. Honestly, I can't. They all are just so different. It depends what you're looking for. So yeah, that was pretty much my thoughts and different ways you can use them. Now let's move on to the individual colors and the comparison / dupes. Alright, so we are going to start off with the Archer, which is right at the top of the Zodiac PR kit. And I'm just looking down into my laptop because this is where I have the files of the comparison, so I can see them directly and explain them to you guys, whether it's a comparison or dupe or whatever it is. I just have my laptop here. So starting off with the Archer, this is described to be a deep plum with a turquoise duochrome sheen according to ColourPop's website. And obviously you can see right here that all of these are just comparisons. Like 2 of them is just like a straight up warm purple, like a straight up purple. So this one is very special to me. I feel like there's nothing like it from ColourPop in my collection. They might have a single shadow that's very similar to it, but to me in my collection, I think this is a very special one. We move on to the Scorpion, which is described to be a warm burgundy. I forgot to mention that with some of the pigments, there is a little bit of difference in formula, where some of them have a lot more glitter, and then some of them are duochrome, and then some of them are just straight up up like metallics, and the Scorpion is definitely one of them where it's a metallic. There is not much glitter reflex to it. It's just a straight up metallic, and when you use it on your lid, if you want a metallic shadow, you gotta get Scorpion. It's a beautiful, beautiful red shade. I compared it to Jackpot from the Fortune palette. I don't think it's similar. Jackpot from the Fortune palette is a bit lighter and a bit more pinky. It's not as like a true burgundy red. We then move on to the Crab, which is described to be a cool tone pink with icy blue sheen, and I love the scale. I think it looks so beautiful, but the shade that I compared it to is Tickled from the Ooh La La palette, and obviously it's not a dupe, it's definitely just a comparison. The reason why I compare these two is because I feel like the reflex in these two shades are very similar. It's just Tickled, it does not have that really heavy pink underbase, but that reflex in there is a little bit similar in a way, but definitely still very different. I love the scales. And then we move on to the Maiden, which is described to be a shimmery white with highlights of gold and sheer glitter. When I saw the Maiden, I'm like, I probably can dupe this one. I feel like we've seen this kind of like pure white with a lot of glitters from ColourPop, but when I was trying to find something, I couldn't find it. So what I end up duping it with is Ladybird, which is a Super Shock shadow. Ladybird is a little bit more white and not like a bit more silvery, and also this is a Super Shock shadow, so I feel like it's a little bit more chunkier of a eyeshadow, and the pigments are a lot more like metallic and finer. We then have the Lion, which is described to be a true yellow gold. Also with the Lion, I thought I could find a dupe to this, and I had like certain shades in my head that I'm like, this looks exactly like this, but when you put them side by side, they are honestly all so different. Although the Lion is described to be a true gold, I feel like it's more like a light gold, and the ones that I compared it with are more like a bright, brassy yellow gold. You can see the difference between all of them. In my head, I thought they were all gonna look the same, but when I swatched it, I was quite surprised that they weren't all the same. And now we have the Crab, which is described to be a soft periwinkle with a lavender duochrome sheen, and the Crab is a very special one. I love the Crab. I think it looks amazing, but for the Crab, I couldn't find anything. There is no dupe, there's no comparison for this one. It's just one of its kind, a beautiful purple periwinkle shade. I love it. And then we have the Twins, which is me, and I didn't even end up using it in one of my looks, but the Twins is Gemini, which is me, and this is described to be an intense pink with a coppery duochrome sheen. When I saw the Twins, I was happy because I was like, I love this shade and that's me. The shades that I compared it to are definitely a lot more warm and like almost orangey. I feel like the Twins is a duochrome, so in different lights it's gonna look a little bit different, but I feel like the Twins is a little bit more like reddy in a way. I don't know. You guys can see the swatch and see what you guys think. And then we have the Bull, which is described to be a bright emerald green. And guys, you guys know how much I love emerald greens, and I love this shade. But I do feel like there are dupes for this one, especially Emerald Dream from the Through My Eyes palette from I Love City. Almost exactly the same, but it's very different when you use an eyeshadow and when you use a pigment. But if you already have that palette and you only want to get the Bull, then you definitely don't have to. I think they almost are exactly the same in my opinion, but nonetheless it's a beautiful shade. I love it, and all the rest are just comparisons, so you can kind of see how much of an emerald it is compared to the other shades. And now we move on to the Ram, which is described to be a bright orange coral with a gold duochrome sheen. Okay, this one is definitely like, the duochrome in this is duochrome. I could not find even a similar shade to this. All these shades here, I feel like I don't even come close to it. These are all definitely just like metallics, and the Ram is more of a duochrome, and you can just see the difference. Like, there's no shade like this. It is so special and unique, and I love it. Great for like the summertime. Love. You could pair this with the Soul palette. That would look so good. Moving along to the Fish. This is described to be a seafoam green with a gold duochrome. So when I saw the Fish, I automatically thought like, this looks exactly like that one shade in the My Little Pony palette. And let me tell you, I swatched it and look how different they are. I was completely off, completely wrong. There is nothing. ColourPop doesn't have such a seafoam color. I feel like they have teals and greens, but there's nothing this like seafoamy. It's like a little bit of seafoam, a little bit of light like blue silver. I don't know, it's so hard to describe, but it's super unique. ColourPop has nothing like this, so I love that. And then we move on to the Water Barrier, but this is described to be a vivid cobalt blue, and that's exactly what it is. You can see the difference when I compared it to the shade Mood from the Wet palette. You can see that Mood is a lot more darker and more of like a truer blue. And for the last pigment, we have the Goat. This is described to be a deep golden bronze, and I love this one. I love how it looks on the eyes. It's what I'm wearing on my eyes today. I think this is a really great everyday color. I just love these kind of shades, just mix it with like a lot of browns, and it's so grungy and smoky. I love it. But the dupes that I have, you know, they are fairly similar. I feel like the Goat is a little bit darker, more darker brown, more like chocolatey, and the rest are a little bit more lighter. Alright guys, so with that being said, I think that is pretty much all I had to say about these loose pigments. I know I've been talking for so long, you guys would be so sick of my damn voice. I'm gonna stop it here. We can start with the 3 demos and make this video even longer. Alright, so jumping straight into the first look, we're going to be going into the Zodiac palette. I will be taking the shade the Libra, and we're going to be using this shade as our transition shadow. I'm just looking straight down into my mirror, making sure I'm getting it right into my crease, and I will be using windshield wiping motions and slowly blending that towards my brow bone area. And then I'll be using the shade the Sagittarius, and I'm gonna place that right at the outer third of my eye at the inner corner, placing the most product there. And then I'm gonna slowly bring it towards the inner part of my crease because we want some darkness in that region as well. That way the cut crease can contrast against something. You guys see me do this technique so many times, but just in case anybody's new here, I always feel like I need to explain what I am doing. And then I'll be taking the shade the Virgo, doing exactly the same thing, but I'm going to be focusing a little bit lower. I also want to make my outer corners very, very dark as well because we're going to be adding a little bit of stars, and this is going to be like a galaxy look a little bit later on. So I'm really just making the outer corners very dark and also dragging it out almost into like a cat-eyed shape. Now I will be taking the shade Capricorn, which is kind of like a satin shade where it's like a matte black base and then it has gold glitters in it. But once you apply it onto your eyes, you don't see those gold glitters. So technically it does work as a matte, which is great. But I'm going to just again place that at my outer corner first and slowly bring it in towards my inner crease, not too much. I really just want the outer corner to be super, super dark and black. And obviously when you are using a black eyeshadow, it is the darkest shadow. So you just want to take your time with it. Don't use too much on your brush, take it step by step. And now I will be just taking some concealer on the back of my hand, and we're going to start cutting out our crease. Since this is only a half cut crease, you only need the product in the inner third of your eye. So I pretty much just stamp the concealer on, and then I'll bring it towards my crease area where I feel like it kind of needs to be. And then I'll go in with a very thin paintbrush, and I will use this to really carve out the crease and really make sure it is very sharp. I always like to look down into my mirror as well. That way my eye can lay flat and it's just easier to work on. But the thinner paintbrush is really going to help us really create that sharp crease line and really get the shape going. Alright, so now it's time to use the pigments. I kind of want to do like a little test and just see different ways you can use the pigments, which kind of primers you can use and stuff like that. For this eye, I actually just use the NYX glitter primer, and I will be doing the same for this eye as well. I just want to see if the pigment can stick onto concealer and if you really do need an eye base. I just want to try it out. I'm just going to place like a teeny weeny bit just to test things out, okay? So the pigment that I'll be using is the crab pigment. I will be using my brush wet so that way it can actually stick onto my brush. I just placed the tiniest bit. I do feel like it does stick onto the concealer perfectly fine. There is a little bit more fallout with it though, but I mean, if you are doing your eyes first, that really won't be an issue. So from my little experiment, I literally just placed a little bit on. You definitely can just use your concealer as a base, but I think there's more benefits when you are using like a glitter glue or a pigment primer. But anyway, we'll be taking the NYX glitter primer, and I'm just going to take that on the back of my hand, and I'm just going to place this right on top of the concealer all over my lid space. This is gonna make the eyes super tacky, and the pigment is just gonna stick right on. And for the first pigment, we are using the crab, and I did wet my brush, by the way. I'm just gonna take that on my brush and place it right on top of the glitter glue. Do you see how reflective this is? It is so crazy. Like, I love this so much. There's just so much dimension, so much glitters. It looks so stunning. Like, these pigments are perfect for cut creases. They just stand out so nicely. They contrast against the darkness. And then for the second pigment in this eye look, we'll be using the shade The Archer, and again, just wetting my brush. We're gonna place this pigment in the center of our lid where the concealer faded out into the matte. This is just gonna add a little bit of pop of color. This is like a darker purple, and it's really gonna blend into the crab very easily. I feel like it has a little bit of that periwinkle reflex in it. It's also another beautiful shade, and just mixing these two just looks so good in the middle. So quickly off camera, I just lined my upper lash line with my Inglot gel liner, and now I'm just gonna go back into the shade the Capricorn, and I'm gonna take it on an angle brush, and I'm just gonna blend out that outer part of the line. I'm just gonna smudge it into the dark outer corner. The reason why I always line my lash line is just because I need something to hide my lash band. That's why I always do it, and not all the time I want to do a wing. So when I don't want to do a wing, this is how I like to diffuse the lash line. Now we will be moving on to the lower lash line. I'm going back into the shade the Sagittarius, and I'm going to run this all over my lower lash line, but especially at the outer corner. I want to connect the shadows that we just placed down previously, and making sure that everything is just connected and is looking like one whole look. And then also back into the shade Capricorn, I'm really going to push this up against my lower lash line. And again, just going to focus a lot of the product, like the darkness at the outer corner, making sure we're connecting everything together. And then for my lower lash line, I'll be taking the ColourPop Cream Gel Liner in the shade Crybaby, and I'm going to run this all over my bottom lash line. My one is a little bit dried out. I definitely need to buy a new one. I'm just going to place this in my lower lash first, and then I'm going to go on top with the other cream gel liner in the shade Exit, which is just the white. I feel like Crybaby gives a really great periwinkle look. And now for the fun part, we're going to be adding in these like little galaxy stars. I did an eye look on this a while back, and a lot of you guys asked me to do a tutorial on it, but I never did it because it's honestly just so simple. But I will be taking my NYX white liquid liner. If you have like the BFF new liquid liners, you definitely could use that. But literally just at the outer corner where we created that very dark outer corner, I'm going to create little diamond shapes just around that outer edge closer to the outer corner, I'm going to make it very dense, and then I'm going to just create little dots at the tip of the cat eye. So it's going to be very dense near my lashes, and then I'm going to pull it out and fade it out. And I just think against the black it looks very, very pretty, and this whole purple theme, it's very galaxy and the zodiacs and the stars and everything like that. I think it just really ties in with this whole theme. So yeah, just take your time with it. It's very, very simple to do. If I had one tip, I would say apply your lashes after you do this, because your lashes can get in the way. And then as a final touch, I will be taking the Maiden pigment, and I'm going to be using this dry, so you guys can kind of see what it looks like when you use a pigment dry. It's just like very, very loose, fine glitters. I'm just going to dust this all over the little stars that we created, so it kind of gives it a little bit of a glimmer, a little bit of a shine and shimmer. So when it catches the light, it will really look like actual stars. Alright guys, so this is the first look completed. For my lashes, I am wearing the Boudoir Lights from House of Lashes, and for my final lip pairing, I decided to go with the ColourPop Luxe Lipstick in the shade Layover. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this look. I really liked how it turned out. I feel like it's very in theme with this whole collection. Now we will be moving on to the second look. I'm gonna go into the Dream Street palette, taking the shade Magical. This is going to be the first initial transition shadow. Next, using the shade Spark from the same palette, I'm gonna put that straight into my crease as well. I'm gonna work it a little bit lower than Magical, but we do want this to peek through, so I'm gonna bring it a little bit higher into my crease. And the reason why I'm using this shadow is because I love oranges against greens and teals. I feel like they really complement each other very, very nicely. Taking some of my NYX pigment primer, I'm going to place this primer all over my lid space. I'm going to focus this mainly on my lid, and when there's a little bit of primer left on my brush, I'm going to bring it up towards my crease. I don't want too much in my crease because I want the pigment mainly on my lid, and then I want it to fade out and towards my crease. So we want a little bit of product in there, that way the pigment still can cling on, but we still want it to like fade out, if you know what I mean. And now we're going to take the pigment in the shade The Bull, and we're going to actually be using this dry. It still looks very, very pretty as long as you have like a primer that it can stick onto. It will still show up even if you do use it dry. So I thought I would show you guys it dry so you can see how it looks. But I'm just going to apply that all over my lid where we place the pigment primer. Again, just focusing most of it on my lid space, and then once most of the pigment is off my brush, I'm going to bring it towards my crease. And now going into the fish pigment, I'm going to be using this one wet. We're just going to place this right on top of the bull, and because we're using this wet, it's going to appear more metallic, and it's really just going to bring out those little glitters, and it's just going to look very sparkly and catch the light very, very pretty. Using a mixture of a wet pigment and a dry pigment, I feel like the mixture of them two really work well together. Going back into the shade Spark, I'm going to run this all over my lower lash line, right from the outer corner to the inner corner. And then taking the shade Owlfish, I'm going to push this up against my lower lash line. I'm going to keep it right underneath my waterline. That way we still can see Spark peeping through. Now taking the pigment in the shade The Lion, I'm going to be using this wet, and we're going to use this to highlight our inner corners. Don't need a lot of this. It is super, super pigmented, especially I'm using a wet. So I just like to place a little bit on my inner corner. I'll take some off on my tissue and then I will blend it out because it is so intense. And then to finish off the look, I'm taking my ColourPop Cream Gel Liner in the shade Punch. And we're just going to use this to line our entire waterline. It's going to bring out the gold in our inner corner as well and just bring the whole look together. Alright guys, so this is the second look completed. For my lashes, I am wearing the Demure Lights from House of Lashes. And for my final lip pairing, I am wearing the ColourPop Velvet Blur Luxe Lipstick in the shade Creme Finish. I really liked how this look turned out. I hope you guys do too. I love the color combinations with the teal and orange and the yellows. I feel like it's such a pretty color combination that I feel like I haven't done before. Maybe I've done something a little bit similar, but I just love how this color combination turned out. So hopefully you guys did as well. Getting into the third look, we're going to go into the Dream Street palette. I'm taking the shade Shooting Star, and this is going to be our transition shadow. I'm just going to place that right into my crease using windshield wiping motions. As always, you guys see me do this 10 billion times. Still using the Dream Street palette, I'm going to be taking the shade Potion, and we're going to put this right at the outer corner first, stamping the most product, and then we're going to bring some of that shadow right into the inner corner, but we want the most product at the outer corner first, so I'm just going to make sure I'm applying it right over there. Then we'll be moving on to the shade Owlfish. I'm going to do exactly the same thing that I did with Potion, but I'm going to be focusing it a little bit lower on my eye, not as high close to my crease. This is going to start creating that gradient that we want, and it's going to give the effect of a very smoky eye. Just using a smaller brush as well. The darker the shadow is, the smaller the brush that I'm using. Dipping into my Zodiac palette, I'm taking the shade The Capricorn, and I'm going to just focus this mainly at the outer corner. I'm not going to so much take it into the inner part of my crease like I have been doing. I just want the outer crease to be super dark. That's just like my go-to eye look recently, so I'm just going to take this shade and put it at the outer corner and just really focusing it just at that area. Now I'm taking my NYX glitter primer and I'm going to be applying that to the inner third of my lid. I, for some reason, like the glitter primer rather than the pigment primer from NYX. When I use this pigment, I feel like the glitter primer just sticks on a little bit better. And also when I apply the glitter primer, it doesn't skip over my shadow or take away my shadow underneath it. But I feel like with the pigment primer, it does do that. So for my preference and on my eyes, I prefer the glitter primer. And then I'll be taking the pigment in the shade The Goat, and I'll be using my brush wet. And we're going to place that pigment right on top of the glitter primer. Around my crease, I'm going to diffuse it out. I don't want this to look like a half cut crease, so I don't want the edge to look very sharp. I want it to be very diffuse. So I'm just going to blend it out around the crease area. So quickly off camera, I just lined my upper lash line with my Inglot gel liner, but I will be going back into the shade The Capricorn, and I'm just going to use this to smoke out the outer edge of that line that I just created. I want the edge not to just stop like randomly and very harshly. I want it to blend into the dark outer corner here. So I've been doing this technique a lot recently. I feel like you guys have seen me do it more often. I'm going back into the shade Potion, and we're going to be running this on our lower lash line from the outer corner to inner corner, but at the outer corner you want to make sure you're connecting it with the shadow that wings out, so that way the whole look can pull together and just look like one whole completed look. And then once again, going back into the shade Owlfish, I'm going to push this up against my lower lash line, just making the lower lash line super smoky as well. That way it can match the upper lid. And lastly, I'll be taking my Artisy In Modestar eyeliner in the shade Coffee, and I'm going to use this to tightline my entire lower lash line. Alright guys, so this is the third look completed. For my lashes, I am wearing the Boudoir Lights from House of Lashes. And for my lip color, I am wearing the Velvet Blur Luxe Lipstick in the shade CA Love. And this completes the look. I love how this one turned out. I love the grunginess that it comes with it. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this final look. Alright guys, so this is going to conclude my video for today. If you have stuck till the end, thank you so much for watching. Like, I already know this video is going to be so long and it's going to take me forever to edit, so good luck to future Judy. Yeah, thank you for watching. Hopefully you found it helpful in all the ways you can use it with the 3 looks and just the whole shebang. I feel like sometimes I give too much information and like it's pointless, but hopefully it was helpful. If you found it helpful, let me know by giving it a thumbs up so I know like I'm doing something right here. Comment down below your favorite look or your favorite shade, or if you like your zodiac color. And with that being said, that is it for today's video. I will let you guys go now. Go live your life. This video is long enough, so thank you so much for watching. I love you guys and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!